One thing about me, I'm gonna give Paramount their lashings. Hey all, how are y'all? It's me, Elaha. Hey guys, and welcome back or welcome to Elements of Elaha, where I talk about things that interest me, affect me, or am very passionate about. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Thundermans Return, as well as my beef with Paramount Plus. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, I have beef with Paramount for multiple reasons, but for the sake of time, let me just list my top 4. Number 1, canceling the iCarly reboot on a cliffhanger. We were finally about to get the answer to one of the biggest questions that has been looming the past 16 years. Where the heck is Carly's mom? And also people that have been shipping Creddy since the original show came out back in 2007. I didn't start watching the show until like 2013, 2014-ish when Sam and Cat was airing to get proper context, but I was a Creddy shipper, but it was never really confirmed that the two of them were endgame. Even on the other shows that were airing, Game Shakers, I remember Nathan Kress guest starred on the show, and he was like actually gonna reveal like who was endgame, Steady or Creddy, and we just didn't know. So they rebooted the show back in 2021, so it's supposed to be a modern version of like what happened to the characters' lives 9 years later. And one of the biggest questions that we had was what happened to Carly's mom? For the longest time, I thought Carly's mama was dead. No, she was just a deadbeat.
You're not ashamed of yourself. Are you not embarrassed? This is really embarrassing.
And we are finally about to see what happened to her. And Paramount was like, yeah, go ahead and pull the plug. What is wrong with y'all? And on top of that too, Carly and Freddie were about to get married as well. I would say don't piss me off, but they have multiple different reasons why they've pissed me off. And my second reason for my beef with Paramount Plus is canceling the Apple TV show Swagger. It was one of the only teen dramas and teen sports dramas that had teenagers playing teenagers without adultifying them. And they said go ahead and pull the plug as well. Like, this would have been one of the first shows where we would have saw the main group of kids go from middle school to high school to college. And they decided to cancel the show. And we don't even know where the main two characters, Jace and Crystal, are going for college. Like, I know no matter what happens, they would have stayed together. But we deserve to see these characters in college. One thing I do like about the show was that both of the season finales could have served as the series finale, but the season 2 finale should have just been a continuation. Like, all that show needed, as well as the iCarly reboot, just needed one more season. And I know you're probably wondering, Elaha, if you said that Swagger is an Apple TV show, why are you roping Paramount into this? Well, Swagger is produced by CBS Studios, right? And what are some other shows you can think of on CBS? Ballpark's Abishola, Fire Country, etc. And where do those shows stream on? Paramount Plus. And who owns CBS? Paramount. Exactly. Then, even after the show had got canceled, I was still like, I love this show so much. So I'm still gonna make a dedicated mini-series reviewing all episodes of the show. I think in total it was about to be like 4 hours. And you know what these stupid, idiotic people did? Not only did they copyright claim me, they blocked me. They blocked my videos. after taking hours to edit that. And I was like, okay, fine. If you're not gonna allow these clips to be used in the video, let me find some TikTok clips that, you know, they manipulate the audio and they're shorter than what the clips used to be. And they still blocked it. I'm giving y'all free press, free promo, and you still gonna block my stuff? You don't want more people to find out about your content? Like, are you guys stupid? And last but not least, greenlighting this monstrosity of a movie. So the Thundermans Return is supposed to be a sequel movie to the original series The Thundermans that aired on Nickelodeon from 2013 to 2018. And the series revolved around the Thunderman family, a family of superheroes trying to balance being superheroes and having a normal school life. Even though the Thundermans was marketed as a superhero show, it was more about like a show about a family that happened to have superpowers than a superhero show. Most of the times when the kids used their powers was just for regular everyday shenanigans or when they wanted to be trolling each other. There were barely any times where they were actually like out there fighting crime. Most of the issues that they had to deal with were just trying to fit in normal school, and they really didn't have like their superpowers conflicting with that. Even when their powers were revealed, it really wasn't like a big deal or anything really. Like it didn't really affect too much of the plot at all because they weren't doing much saving to begin with. If you compare the Thundermans to other like superhero shows that aired around that time, like Henry Danger, Lab Rats, Mighty Med, you could say these are superhero shows because like you actually see them actively struggling between having a secret life, saving people, and just trying to be normal high schoolers. But the Thundermans really wasn't that. But anyways, I digress. My thing is, when it comes to all these TV shows and movies having like a revival that comes out years or even sometimes decades after the original media was made, is that most of the times these shows already have a good ending. So there's really no reason to bring it back. Like, there were several shows that needed a continuation that Nickelodeon canceled, i.e. like Victorious, Game Shakers, all the 20 episode shows that used to come out during the time, like Wits Academy, Talia in the Kitchen. What else? The Other Kingdom, I Am Frankie, Make It Pop. All these other shows that should have had the proper chance to either get a final season or a final movie. They're like, oh no, we're not gonna do that. But the shows that had a perfect ending, they're like, yeah, let's mess up all the hard work that we did for a quick cash grab. Why? But when this movie first got greenlit, I thought it was gonna follow in the footsteps of the iCarly reboot, where it was geared towards the original audience, which was older Gen Z and younger millennials. So I thought that this movie was gonna do the same, geared towards the older / mid Gen Z that grew up watching the show. I feel like there are two ways where you can do a reboot / revival. One, it can focus on the new generation, whether that's being like it still takes place in the same area or it's about the children of the original characters. Think High School Musical, the musical, the series, think Raven's Home. Or you can have the show still revolve around the original set of characters, but age it up so it can appeal to the original audience that grew up with the show, i.e. the iCarly reboot. But when I was watching this movie, I often ask myself the question of, who is this for? Because older Gen Z and mid Gen Z grew up watching the Thundermans. But the way they marketed this movie, even though it was rated like TVG, it definitely should have been rated TVY because they dumbed a lot of things down. And they also had some jokes in there that I know the little kids would not necessarily understand because they tried to make everything kiddie-like, but the kids they're trying to market to don't even know about the show. Because the Thundermans really wasn't one of those shows where a lot of reruns aired. Like, this was one of the few shows that wasn't created by Dan Schneider, so you definitely know they're not going to do a lot of reruns. So the general synopsis of the movie reads, the Thundermans are back but must return to Hiddenville after a mishap strips them of their crime-fighting duties. While Hank and Barb enjoy the family's return to their old home, Billy and Nora look forward to a normal high school life. So even though the show ended 6 years ago, we only get a time skip of only 3 years, which definitely leaves room for a lot of plot holes to happen. But I digress. The film starts off in the Thundermans' new city, Metroburg, where meteors are about to destroy the city, and you have a bunch of city people being like, oh my gosh, meteors are coming to attack us. Isn't there gonna be anybody that saves us? Cue dun da 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 the Thundermans. And instead of immediately seeing that, oh, these meteors, if they land, they could kill people, they are so focused on making a dramatic entrance instead of stopping the meteors. So before they even start fighting, they're like, oh, say your names and then start fighting. So in the family of 7, they all say their names. Hank, the dad, is Thunderman. Barb, the mom, Electress. Phoebe is Thunder Girl. Nora is Laser Girl. Billy is Kid Quick. Chloe is Thunder Baby. And Max, I don't really know what Max's superhero's name is, and that's really gonna become like a running gag. I also want you to keep in mind, like, this is the first time where Billy, Nora, and Chloe actually do some crime fighting, because most of the time where Billy and Nora would use their powers, it will be to fight each other and not really use it for any good. But just a quick rundown of the powers. Hank has super strength, Barb has electricity, the twins have the power of telekinesis, freeze breath, and heat breath, Billy has the power of super speed, Nora has the power of laser vision, and Chloe has the power of teleportation. So the Thundermans finally start fighting the meteors, and when I tell you they are the slowest crime fighters I've ever seen, they are the slowest crime fighters I've ever seen. If I had to choose between getting hit by a meteor and superheroes wanting to get the glory before actually saving the day, just hit me. Just let the meteor hit me at this point. Because why are you so focused on everybody knowing your names when you're not focused on stopping the meteor? And while this is happening, Max is live streaming them stopping the meteor from his phone. Bro, what are you doing?
Are you dumb?
You're supposed to be a superhero, yet you're acting like an influencer. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? And the way that the special effects look in this movie are absolutely ridiculous. Like, everything looks super cheap. And you would think that since this movie is on Paramount streaming service that they'd give them a bigger budget, when I think I know what the issue is. I know Kiera was like, oh, bear with us because this is a Nickelodeon movie after all, but the CGI and special effects were not that bad in the original show. Here's what it looked like in the original show. And here's what it looked like in the movie. Like, Kiera babes, you ain't got to lie, okay? If you guys spent all the money on the new suits and the new crib, just say that. Just say that, because we know nothing more than $2 went to these special effects. But 3 decades later, the Thundermans managed to save the day, and so they head back to their home in Metroburg, where Phoebe is the team captain of the T-Force, and she starts to debrief the mission. And instead of the rest of the family like listening and hearing what they could do better, like, I don't know, como se dice, actual superheroes, they start getting pissed at Phoebe and they want to focus more on doing family game night. So Nora uses her laser vision to zap Phoebe's tablet. So Chloe, Phoebe, and Max are now playing a board game at the table, but Phoebe can't focus on game night because she is super obsessed with becoming superhero of the year. And while Phoebe is doing that, Max is now entered his influencer era. So now he's talking about being rated the cutest super bachelor. Who cares? If the people you're supposed to save do not turn out okay, who's gonna make the fan pages about you, bro? Who? And the thing is, if they are already super famous, Max wouldn't need to live stream, you know, their missions. They would have the news do that. You know? Why does he need to live stream stuff when if you have this super family that's been saving people for over 3 years, 3+ years at this point, the news would give him all the glory. Max doesn't need to do that by himself. But since the family is no longer living a quote-unquote double life, that means now that Billy and Nora can start high school without having to keep their powers a secret. And I mentioned it's only been 3 years, so the last time when the show ended, Billy and Nora were like early middle school age, and Chloe was a toddler. So tell me why Chloe is supposed to be 10? Yeah. You see, this is why they should have time jumped 6 years. This is why they should have time jumped 6 years, man. But as the family is enjoying family game night, they get a crime alert on their TV. So they have to rush there and see where it's happening. And they pull up to the street and they notice a villain named Blue Flame trying to rob the Metroburg bank. So, of course, instead of getting stuff down to business, it's a whole lot of exposition and not a lot of fighting and a whole lot of streaming and not a lot of slapping, punching, freeze breathing, whatever. So, since Max is so focused on trying to make sure everybody sees like the heroic stuff that him and his family are doing, another superhero team ends up taking the shine from the Thundermans and shows up to the exact same place. I don't know how they got that specific crime alert, but we'll see. And this team is called the V-Team. So what ends up happening is Phoebe tells Nora to fire a suit against the criminal that's trying to rob the bank. And Nora's like, if I get the wrong angle, everything can go terribly wrong. And Phoebe was like, oh, Nora, just do it. So she ends up doing it. And while this is happening, Max is live streaming all of this from a jetpack in the sky. So what ends up happening is Nora does laser the dude, but the laser that was supposed to be meant for him ends up ricocheting on Max's jetpack. And so that causes Max to fly around all haywire, and he ends up injuring one of the soups on the V team. And this leads to a visit from like one of the most iconic characters on the show, Miss President Kickbutt, the boss of the T-Force. So President Kickbutt pulls up to their crib and she's like, hey, what the hell? Like, you guys are supposed to be the most successful superhero team, and you let these newbies outshine you. Not only that, you injured them too. So due to you guys not only failing the mission, but injuring a fellow soup, you guys are no longer superheroes. Yes. They get fired from their job, and they're forced to relocate from Metroburg to where, you may ask? Their original town of Hiddenville. Yeah, the Thundermans are back, baby, to their original setting. So the Thunder Monitor welcomes the Thundermans back to Hiddenville. Max reunites with Dr. Colosso and his fellow buddies, Wolfgang, Gideon, and I forgot the name of the other one. I'm probably going to say his name in the editing. And Phoebe reunites with Cherry. And Billy and Nora start at Max and Phoebe's old high school, which the principal is not thrilled to see more Thundermans because obviously the older two gave him a hard time. Since a lot of Phoebe's identity is focused on her training to become a superhero, she is the most distraught that she's been fired from her job. All of the other family, they couldn't give two craps about literally being fired. I mean, Max literally spent most of the show being a supervillain, so... And then he cared more about being an influencer than actually being a superhero. So Max is like, oh yeah, like, there's no way the V team is better than us. Like, don't worry about it, Phoebes. And since Billy and Nora are going to high school, that leaves one kid left that the parents still are helicopter parents on, Chloe. And Chloe has now taken an interest into skateboarding. And since Chloe is the last child, they want to be super protective of Chloe. And my thing is, it's always when it comes to the younger siblings in superhero shows and movies that they always don't want to let the youngest do anything. They're like, oh my gosh, like, no, it's dangerous. It's not safe. And 9 times out of 10, or even 10 times out of 10, they always end up saving the family.
I know that's right.
They always do. So at Hiddenville High, Billy and Nora were so determined to get friends that since everybody knows they have superpowers, they just end up having a little fight to see like whose powers are the coolest. Billy goes and gets a bunch of antique items from different areas, and Nora is basically playing laser boomerang with her powers. And I also want to mention that in this scene, we see Principal Bradford has grown a ponytail. And if it's one thing Nora is good at, it's using her powers for nonsense. So one thing that I did have in the back of my mind was definitely like she was going to laser that ponytail off, which she eventually does end up doing. And the thing is, honestly, I wouldn't have even shown off my powers to these people because I think a lot of the time these kids were just trying to get entertainment. I highly doubt that they wanted to be their friends. But honestly, I feel like if this movie was longer, they definitely could have dove more into that. But since this movie was only 70 minutes, they just have to keep fast forwarding through a lot of this. So Carrie is now working at Splatburger, where the crew used to hang out, that is ran by Miss Wong. And to give Phoebe something to do, she convinces Miss Wong to hire Phoebe as an employee at Splatburger. And Max rejoins his old boy band that he had with his friends. Meanwhile, while that is happening, the supposed soups of the V team actually turn out to be the children of Dark Mayhem, King Crab, and Strongdoor. And I know when I'm explaining this, it sounds like a good plot. Trust me, it isn't. Like, all of this is happening within 20 minutes. So when all these things were revealed, I genuinely did not care. I'm like, we saw these people on our screens for like 2 seconds, and I'm supposed to be like, oh my gosh, they're evil. I didn't know they're evil. It's like, I don't care. I don't care, bro. I do not care. So we learned that the supervillains and their children have been creating a plan to get the Thundermans fired, which is what they did. But then the kids came to the jail to tell their parents, hey, we're not following their plan anymore. They have a new plan. And their plan was to create a worldwide army of supervillains with the secret item that the Hero League has been guarding for over a century. So Max and Phoebe return home and they're like, okay, this non-superheroing life sucks. We need to get our jobs back. So they go to convince their family, hey, like, don't you miss being superheroes? And the rest of them are like, no, we don't miss it. Again, they barely did any saving in the original show. So it's like, what are you guys tired for? Especially Billy and Nora. What have you guys done to be tired? But since Max and Phoebe were the only ones concerned about getting their superhero jobs back, Phoebe decides to go and spy on the V team because she thinks there's something fishy going on with the V team. So she ends up using her heat breath to break into wherever the V team is staying. So instead of immediately being on the go, like immediately being on Miss Nook if you book, she's just staying there for a lot of seconds. And a few seconds after Phoebe gets in there, guess what? Max decides to tag along because he can't let his sister get all the superhero glory. So they focus more on fighting each other so for who gets the superhero glory, that the V team end up being like, oh, looky here. What do we got here? The twins, the Thunder twins. And once they get caught by the V team, they don't immediately use their brains and, freeze them. They just let themselves be kidnapped. And it's like, how do you expect supervillains to envy y'all and everyday citizens to praise y'all when you just hand yourselves to them on a silver platter? You mean to tell me you guys got telekinesis, heat breath, and freeze breath, and you use none of those powers, and you've been training to be a superhero for most of your teen life?
Girl, stop playing with us right now. Like, we really don't feel like...
What's going on? What's going on? So, what ends up being revealed is the secret item that the V team were looking for was a power plant that has been hidden in the Thundermans' house. But since Max and Phoebe went out to go do their own thing, the rest of the family does not know that Max and Phoebe have been kidnapped as of yet. So Hank and Barb decide to go rent a helicopter from their cousin Blobbin to go and spy on Chloe at the skate park, but they end up failing miserably at not trying to be caught. So the V team decide to show up at the Thundermans' house since the Thundermans' house has the power plant. And the home monitor was like, alert, alert, The V team is here. You guys got intruders here. And again, the slowness will get you. The slowness will get you. They take their precious time to just stand around there and be useless. How do you have some of the most interesting powers and still be useless? I don't get some. So they bust into the Thundermans house and they're like, hey, where's the power plant? And Hank and Barb are like, what power plant? We don't know what power plant you're talking about. And again, instead of immediately being like, hey, why are these people in our house? Let us like defend ourselves. Now, the V team is like, oh, go ahead and give us the power plant. And originally, Hank does not give them the power plant until the daughter of King Crab shows the rest of the family that Max and Phoebe have been kidnapped and they're being tortured in Dark Mayhem's evil lair. And my thing is, always when it comes to these kinds of things, you want them to tell you where your children are before you give them what you want. You would think somebody that's been a superhero for longer than his children have been alive know that villains lie. Villains lie, and villains lie a lot. So basically, what ends up happening is they end up taking the red power plant that creates supervillains, and they're like, psych, we're not telling you where Max and Phoebe are. And Hank at his big age wants to be flabbergasted.
Girl, you're a joke.
Again, you have been a superhero longer than your children have been alive. And you don't know when a couple of teenagers are playing you? And while this is happening, the rest of the family is just standing there like useless goats. You hear they have your siblings, and you just standing there like, ha ha ha. This is shocking information to me. This ain't making me angry. You just standing there like a useless statue. But as I said, the youngest always save the day. So Chloe ends up finding a power plant that instead of creating supervillains, it creates superheroes. So they gather up all the people that the Thundermans have interacted in with Hiddenville, and it's like, hey, take the seeds from this power plant. Like Max and Phoebe have helped you, and they need you right now. So take these seeds so you can get superpowers and go and help us save Max and Phoebe, when you guys wouldn't have even needed to do that if you guys had just had sense. If you had just had sense. But eventually, the rest of the family finds Max and Phoebe. They end up rescuing them. Then once the family saves Max and Phoebe, they start talking about how if the V-Team wanted to create a bunch of supervillains, they would drop the power plant seeds from the highest point in Hiddenville. Or I should say the highest point in Mount Metroburg. So the V-Team, since the Thundermans basically just let them come up with their evil plan, they now have broken their dads out of prison, and they're starting their whole evil plan. And so they're supposed to have this whole big show off at Mount Metroburg. But again, a whole lot of exposition and not a lot of fighting. Like, the daughter of King Crab, all she has is a freaking crab on her arm. And Electress is fighting her with the power of electricity. And instead of zapping her from the very beginning, she like, oh, you got a crab claw. I got the power of electricity. So you can't beat me. And she ends up beating her. Why are you talking and not fighting? It's supposed to be a superhero show, but they're so focused on being flashy, you end up letting these people beat you. And since they were taking forever to go and beat these people's yashes, one of the people in the B team ends up launching the power plant into the sky. Like, if they had just defeated them in the first place, Mayhem Jr. would have not launched that plant into the sky, even after they defeated them 20 million years later. So Chloe teleports Max and Phoebe onto the drone that has the seeds from the power plant. And so they end up stopping it, but it was this brief moment of, oh, we don't know if Max, Phoebe, and Chloe are okay. They're okay. This is a TVG movie. They ain't killing nobody. So, yeah, all is saved. The Thundermans end up getting their jobs back. They have their family game nights, and the rest of the crew still has superpowers. And yeah, after watching this, I want my 70 minutes back. I want my 70 minutes back. This movie did not need to exist. I feel like it would have been a lot better if it was a limited series so they can flesh everything out more. Because if it's like you're introducing some new characters in one breath and then telling us like all your exposition under another one, like, I just don't care. And when it comes to the audience that this is for, because it's a Thundermans Return, there'll be no little kid watching a movie called The Thundermans Return because they don't know who the Thundermans are. Yet they're too busy trying to dumb down everybody and over-explain everything when we know what you do. It's supposed to be a sequel movie. And while Nickelodeon is at it, go ahead and can that Henry Danger movie. As you guys have seen, the animated series was a flop. Danger Force was a flop. Just ruin Henry Danger's legacy for no reason. So just go ahead and can that. And stop rebooting these shows. Except for giving iCarly reboot a proper fourth and final season, or if not, an actual movie to wrap everything up, because it was actually good. This just shows me that Paramount does not value good content at all. They really don't. Anyways, y'all, that is the end of this very long video. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe. And go ahead and check out my last video right here. Anyways, y'all, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.